We already know how to create color palettes from our color libraries or from using any of the color pickers and selecting colors from our sheet and adding them to our active palettes. But you can also import color palettes directly from Adobe applications. For example, in Adobe Illustrator, I have a blank palette and I want to add the colors from my vector art into that blank palette and then export it to Colorway. So let's add some colors by using the New Swatch button. I can click on each of these colors and just add them as new colors. You can see that I'm just setting up the colors with their RGB values. I can name them inside of Adobe Illustrator, or I can name them inside of Colorway. To save this palette and open it in Colorway, I go up here, go down to Save Swatch Library as ASE, and that's an Adobe Swatch Exchange file. Then I choose the location that I want to save that. I can save it inside my Colorway project, or I can save it in a general location. Let's call it Foundry Logo Colorful Palette. And I make sure that .ase is selected as my file type. I press the Save button, and Adobe Illustrator prompts me to tell me that gradients, patterns, and tints are not currently exchangeable. That's fine because I'm taking solid colors. So I press OK. Now I go to Colorway, and inside Colorway, I can add this color palette to my active sheet palettes. I can also add it to my color libraries, but I'll show you how to do that in a moment. So in my active palettes, I have a couple of options. I can link the palette, or I can import the external palette. I'm going to import it. So I press the Import button. I locate that palette, and you can see here, Foundry Logo Colorful Palette.ase is saved into the folder. Click on the palette and press Select. Now down the bottom, I have an additional color palette called Foundry Logo Colorful Palette. And there are all the colors that I had set up in Adobe Illustrator as RGB. I can pop that off and have multiple palettes now. In Colorway, I can then rename those colors. And if I had named them inside of Adobe Illustrator, those names would come through into Colorway. That's how I import a color palette. But you saw that there's also the option to link the color palette. If I link the color palette by pressing the link button and choosing that color palette, I then have the option of updating those colors in Adobe Illustrator, adding new colors or subtracting colors, and because the palette is linked, the palette will be updated inside of Colorway as well. So for example, if I changed this acid yellow color to maybe a sunshine yellow inside of Adobe Illustrator and saved a new palette, it would update in Colorway. It would also update every instance of that color being applied to an item inside of Colorway. So those palettes remain truly live sources.